Good evening. Namaste. So I'm going to talk for a few minutes about the Ashaya yoga technical definitions and distinctions, just in case some of you were new to the Ashaya method today in the practice. There might be some anatomical terms or different techniques that are new to you. So I wanted to make sure we had a chance to talk about those and describe what they are so you'll be, less confused tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed the first day of practice for inner peace in turbulent times. I really enjoyed being with you. After we got the technical stuff figured out, it should go a little bit smoother tomorrow. So thanks for hanging in there with me. And it was really such a delight. Just loved doing this, and it's all experiment, it's a whole thing for me. But I feel like it's an avenue for us to be together, to practice together, especially during this unprecedented time. Okay, so just a little bit of background around about Ashaya Yoga, and then I'll go into the technique. So Ashaya means abode of the heart. Ashaya also means a deep place inside, a refuge, sanctuary where we keep our most treasured parts of ourself. It's a place of safety. Ashaya is based in the Tantric tradition, specifically the Kashmir Shaiva Tantra, but also some of the Shakta Tantra ideas. It's just a later form of the Tantra. And basically, it's all about empowering ourselves, empowering the individual, that we are the carriers of the divine, we are the carriers of the absolute energy, and that even though we have this limited form, like our body is limited, we come from the unlimited. So it's a whole method that helps to reawaken this longing for something greater and to reawakening a recognition of who we truly are in our true nature, which is joy. So that's the basis, and I developed it in 2012. It's really a combination of a lot of different methods that I've studied in depth, and I put it into a different context. There are four basic principles of alignment. I call them essentials, that are the backdrop between each of between all the poses. So they are open, engage, align, and expand. These four essentials also relate to the five elements. Open is related to sky, engage is related to earth, and align is related to water and fire, and expand is related to air. So the whole idea is when the body is in balance, we're balancing the five elements, and these five elements are really the constituents of our consciousness. They're the basis of where this whole physical body comes from. And so the technique relates to these principles, and there's a lot of paradoxical components about the main pulsation of life, which is contraction and expansion. Those are the two forces in nature. And in Ashaya Yoga, we're learning how to balance both stability and freedom, and to be able to find the place in the middle. And it's that place in the middle that takes us to the heart. Now, the heart is also situated in the middle. There's three chakras above, three chakras below, and the heart is situated in the center. So by coming to the place in the middle, this place between the extremes, between contraction and expansion, brings us into what I call the threshold. Sanskrit term is madhya. And in this threshold is where we discover our unlimited potential. The human being discovers its own divinity. We come to a place where, through embracing challenge, through embracing boundary, and through creating healthy self boundaries, we catapult ourselves into the deepest, most radiant freedom that we can have in life. And that's really the essence. We want to live fully. We want to laugh fully. We want to love fully. We want to be able to live our dreams and do that even though there are fears, there are challenges, and all of that. So the paradox is I think I may have said it either this morning or another time, but we're not trying to fix the problem. In Tantra, we're trying to manage the paradox. We want to get to the place in the middle. And that's where our true essence is. That's where our true freedom is. So let's go ahead into some of the techniques. So some of the terms that I use are anatomical, also terms that just they're everyday language that defines a certain part of the body. So let's go to the hands. When I say place your hands on the mat, claw, pads, and roots. The pads are the fleshy tissue underneath the fingernails. This is a pad. And so we claw like a gecko lizard. And the roots are where the fingers join the hand. These are the metacarpal knuckles. So when I say pads and roots, we're clawing. And, if this was the floor, it would look like this. So when you claw, pads, and roots, you're activating all the intrinsic muscles of the hands. It takes pressure off your joints, off the wrists, off the carpal bones. And a lot of yoga is where we're collapsing down. It's taught without this kind of engagement of the hands. And you put so much pressure on this part here that you get carpal tunnel syndrome. It gets inflammation or you get tendonitis. So it's completely avoidable. You need to claw and get the weight into your finger pads and also the roots. When I say pads and roots, that's what I mean. This whole action, when you do this, is called hasta bandha or hand lock. And what it does is when if you squeeze your palms totally together so there's no arch, there's no space, and you move your fingertips away like this, and if you're in downward dog pose where you're weight bearing, you're going to put all the pressure on your wrist. And if you look now at I don't know if I can show it, between your hands or right at the heel of your hand, there should be no space. That is incorrect. You have a carpal arch. So when you claw your pads and roots, it'll open up the carpal arch and you should see a little bit of space. I don't know if you can. There it is. That's the space. Here it is without. And here it is with. Well, video doesn't show it. Anyway, you can see it on yourself. Okay, so that's clawing your hands, pads and roots. Head of the arm bones. So the head of the arm bone. So this is our arm bone from the elbow up to the shoulder, and the head is the part at the end here at the shoulder. So when I say head of your arm bones back, instead of slouching forward, is taking the arm bones back this way. To do that, you first have to lengthen your side ribs. Where are my side ribs? Well, here are your ribs, and it's the side of your ribs. So you lengthen the side ribs and then take the head of your arm bones back this way. Okay? And when you lengthen your ribs, you want to do it from the sides, from the ribs. And why are we lengthening the ribs? Because we're inviting the light of the universe to fill us, and it expands us from the inside. There's an effulgence of light. So we want to do it with that kind of subtlety so that you don't go like this. This is shrugging the shoulders. So you want to do just side ribs lift, head of the arm bones back, and you try to lift them evenly. Anyway, okay, so that's head of the arm bones. Inner armpits. Oh my God, I never thought I had one. Hey, you have two. You have an inner armpit and you have an outer armpit here. So let's say when the arms are up overhead and you pull the inner armpits back, the armpits go back like this. Okay. When they roll forward, the upper arm internally rotates and it brings you into a shoulder slouch, which we don't want. So external rotation of the upper arm bones, inner armpits back, armpits. I think I mentioned this morning, allow your armpits to dome, D-O-M-E. So there's just so many different ways to get these actions to happen. So when you open to a bigger energy, that's related to the sky element, and the actions in the body to get more sky in you is side ribs long, dome your armpits, expand front and back, Even soften your skin and come to the breath. These are all ways that are to embody the first essential, which is open, related to sky. Okay, thighs back, tailbone in. So thigh bones back. Okay, we want to get a natural low back curve because when the lumbar spine, the lower back, has a curve, all the vertebrae are happy. All the discs between those vertebrae have even pressure front to back. If you have a flat back or an overly lordotic back, which means you're like a sway back, it makes an imbalanced pressure on the discs, especially flat back. The legs govern the spine, so to get a low back curve, you have to take your thigh bones back. Most people, if they walk, they stand with their feet turned out. That presses the thigh bones forward. That yanks the sitting bones down. Tight hamstrings also pulls the sitting bones down, and that flattens your back. So the goal in Ashaya Yoga is we want to return to the natural alignment of the body, and our spine has 4 curves. So to get the low back curve, we bring the thighs back. There are 3 components to thighs back. You turn the thighs in first, you move the thigh bones back, and then the thigh bones widen. I know this is a lot to take in. I do have a manual, and you're able to download it. Actually, it's in the Ashaya store. So you can go to ashayayoga.com, click on the store, and you'll see the hard copy of it. We can mail it to you, or you can download it. But I'm just trying to explain some of the simpler concepts. So thighs back gives you curve, tailbone in, or scoop the tailbone, or draw the tailbone down. Where's the tailbone? The tailbone is 3 to 4 fused bones at the very end of your spine. It's called the coccyx. And when you take your thighs back, the tailbone unfurls. And so we're doing 2 actions at the same time. You take your thighs back, that gives you curve. Thigh bones go back. But then when you pull your tailbone down, it pushes your thigh bones forward. But since you're keeping your thighs back, you keep the curve, and we're simply adding length to the curve. Drawing the tailbone down brings length into the curve. And we want to find the place of balance in the middle. Some people with a low back curve, with too much curve, they have to do much more tailbone scoop. For those that have flat backs, they have to do more thigh bones back. And the goal is to find the balance of thighs back and tailbone in to bring you to that sweet spot in the middle, which is the threshold. Okay. How about palate back, occiput up? I said that a few times. How about lift your throat? Okay, when you lift your throat, it's this area here, you just lift straight up. Lift your throat. Then to take your palate back, there's like a little disc.
One possibility I see is stroke on Pecan Avenue in Charlotte.
The palate is a little disc, and on the center of the upper palate, you slide back. And I like to think of a head sling that comes down, goes underneath the upper palate to the occiput. What is that? It's the bony ridge in the back of your head. Here, put your hands on the back of your skull and see where that ridge is. It's called occiput. Occiput. So with the occiput there, so the palate brings a curve into your neck. Now, isn't this interesting? Thighs back brings a curve in your low back. Palate back brings a curve in your neck. So as above, so below. The upper body and the head function very similar, but in an opposite way to the sacrum and the hips. So palate back gives you curve like this. Occiput up lengthens the curve. You want to keep your chin level to the floor at all times. Okay, so palate back. The chin will lift a little bit, but then when you lift your occiput, the chin comes down. And you imagine this head sling pulling up above you and pulling you back a little bit. It feels wonderful. It creates a lot of space in the cervical spine. Okay, I think that's it. How about one more? Femurs. Where are your femurs? Femur is your thigh bone from your hip to your knee. It's the longest bone in the body. And I was speaking about lengthening the femurs whenever you're in a back bend. So we have these core centers in the body. They're gravity centers, and there's four of them. Only one is the primary active gravity center in any pose, and it has to be the most weight bearing and the one closest to the foundation. So the centers, I call them spanda centers because spanda means pulsation. Spanda talks about how there's contractive energies and expansive energies. Spanda actually describes how the vast universal energy limits itself to become the individual through spanda, through a vibration, through a pulsation. We could say the universe is pulsing itself into existence in every moment. And at the same time, from our own individual nature, we're pulsing ourselves back into the universal. So the spanda center is where energy pools and pulls into from periphery to core. It's like a star. Stars pull in energy, and there's a nuclear fusion in the center of the star, which through that explosion is what brings the light of the star. The light shines because of the intense contraction in. So we hug in, draw in order to shine out. And it's all happening from the hub. Think of it as a hub of a wheel. The spokes of the wheel all pull in to a central point. So every pose has a hub. I call that the spanda center. So in the bow pose, down your ostrum and down your belly, and you're holding your feet, the spanda center is the pelvis. So I was saying you pull into the spanda center. So from the tips of the toes to from your head, you pull into the core of the pelvis because that's the point that's closest to the foundation and weight bearing. And then from the core of the pelvis, you push out through the legs first and then through the spine. When I say grow your femurs long, it's from the fourth essential of Ashaya Yoga, expand, where you expand your bones. It's mostly energetic. But that's when, I could also say just stretch through your thighs, but you wouldn't really understand, you wouldn't get the specifics of getting the thigh bone itself to actually elongate. So the language of Ashaya, the technique is very specific. And like I said, the form repeats. There's only four essentials. And if you understand and really know the four essentials, you'll know what I'm saying in each posture. And you'll know which essential that is. So really, I'm just saying things to remind you of how to do the technique.